My sister's silver heel cracked against marble as she slapped me so hard the music stopped. Chandeliers sparkled like they were applauding. I tasted blood. Then she grabbed my hair and dragged me, not backstage, but right through the crowd, through the investors, her voice slicing the air. "You're just jealous." "And my mom?" She smiled. Like she'd waited for this moment. No one stopped her. Not even the people who used to call me a hero when I worked 12-hour ER shifts during the pandemic. But the worst wasn't the slap. It was what came after, when the woman who used to braid my hair at night whispered to a reporter, "She's broken. Long shifts'll do that to your mind." Funny how one slap can spark the kind of war that burns empires to the ground. The cameras turned away from me that night, but they're all watching now. If you've ever been silenced by someone who was supposed to protect you, don't scroll. Hit like. Drop a comment if you've ever felt erased by your own blood. Funny how one slap can crack open a memory you thought you buried. 3 years earlier, the ballroom glittered as if it were trying to blind me into forgetting who I was. Golden chandeliers dripped light over the tables, polished glasses caught sparks like diamonds, and the hush of money and influence pulsed under the soft hum of the string quartet. My heels clicked too loudly against the marble floor. I hadn't worn anything this delicate since before the pandemic, before the 12-hour ER shifts, before the nights of blood under my nails and the quiet sobs in hospital stairwells. Tonight wasn't supposed to be about me. It was supposed to be about my sister, Harper. Her big launch, her new life. I kept rehearsing the same thought as I stepped into the opulence. Maybe this would be the night we found our way back. Maybe she would smile at me the way she used to when we shared a bedroom and whispered dreams under glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. Back then, she used to braid my hair and tell me I was her hero. Tonight, I wanted to believe we could still be those sisters. But when Harper turned and saw me, her eyes didn't soften. They hardened like glass. She stood at the center of it all, bathed in spotlights, her gown shimmering like liquid silver. She was radiant, magnetic. The crowd orbited her every laugh, every flick of her wrist. The wellness goddess, the vital glow miracle. And then she saw me. Her smile faltered. I knew that look. The same one she gave me last Christmas when Mom handed her the family heirloom ring and pretended I wasn't in the room. The same one she gave me when I tried to talk about my shifts, about the patients I lost. Disdain. I barely had time to whisper her name before her hand cracked across my cheek. The sound cut through the music, a brutal snap that silenced the quartet mid-note. Heat bloomed across my skin. Gasps scattered like gunfire. My body swayed, but her fingers didn't let go. Harper's nails dug into my scalp as she grabbed my hair and yanked me forward, dragging me across the polished floor like a warning to everyone watching. "You're just jealous," she hissed, loud enough for the entire room to hear. "Always have been, huh?" The words stung worse than the slap. Jealous. That was her story, her shield, as if I had nothing of my own, as if I hadn't spent years saving lives while she built an empire out of filtered selfies and powdered supplements. I caught sight of Mom across the room. She wasn't horrified. She wasn't running toward me. She was smirking as if Harper had done what she herself didn't dare. The crowd froze. Investors in suits stiffened. Women with manicured hands covered their mouths but didn't move. No one moved. My knees nearly buckled when Harper shoved me through the ballroom doors and into the sterile brightness of the women's bathroom. The marble tiles echoed the sound of my stumbling shoes. My lip throbbed. When I raised my fingers, they came away slick and red. My reflection stared back from the mirror, hair tangled, eyes wide, mouth split. I didn't look like a nurse who had stood tall through disasters. I looked like prey. For a second, I wanted to laugh. It was absurd. Just hours ago, I'd been suturing a boy's forehead, telling him he was brave. Now here I was, bleeding in a designer bathroom because my own sister had humiliated me in front of half of Los Angeles. How did we get here? I blinked, and in that harsh mirror light I saw flashes of us as little girls. Harper balancing on the porch railing, shouting that one day she'd be famous. Me clapping for her, believing it, believing in her. She used to say we were unstoppable together, that we'd build a life no one could break. I don't know when those promises twisted into claws. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped my phone. My chest heaved like I'd run a marathon. I pressed the screen, desperate for one voice that would anchor me. "Alex?" I whispered when he answered. "Emily? What's wrong?" His voice was low, steady, the exact opposite of the chaos inside me. I tried to swallow, but my throat was raw. Harper, she just, in front of everyone, she dragged me out like I was nothing. I couldn't finish. The words crumbled. "Where are you?" Alex's tone sharpened, the way it used to when we were cramming for exams, and he caught a mistake I'd missed. Reliable, sharp. He was a medical lawyer now, but to me he was still the friend who pulled me out of the library when I was too exhausted to keep going. "The hotel," I breathed, staring at the smear of red on my hand. "The launch. She slapped me, Alex, in front of Mom, and Mom just smiled." He was silent for a beat. Then, "Stay there. I'm coming. Don't go anywhere, Emily." The trembling in my body slowed, just enough for me to catch my breath. I pressed my forehead to the cool mirror. My heart wasn't broken. It was done. Whatever sister I thought I had, whatever family I thought would stand by me, it wasn't real anymore. I lifted my head and forced myself to look into my own eyes. I don't know this woman in the mirror, I thought. Not Harper, not even myself. But maybe that was the point. Maybe this was the night I stopped being her shadow. Maybe this was the night I started fighting back. The bathroom was too quiet, the hum of fluorescent lights cruel against the ringing in my ears. Outside, the music started again, as if nothing had happened, as if my humiliation could be smoothed over by champagne refills and polite applause. But I knew better. The scar had already been carved. I slid my phone back into my clutch and straightened, even as the taste of copper coated my mouth. The crowd might have frozen, Mom might have smirked, Harper might have basked in her power, but this wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. And the question that refused to leave me, sharp and cold. How did my sister turn into this? The drive to the coffee shop felt endless, even though it was barely 15 minutes from the hotel. My hands were locked on the steering wheel so tight my knuckles blanched white, the bones straining against my skin. The Los Angeles night blurred outside my windshield, neon signs, brake lights, the pulse of a city that never stops moving. But inside my car, I felt frozen. My cheek still burned where Harper had struck me. My scalp tingled from where she had yanked my hair. The humiliation wasn't just physical, it was inside me, carved deep, like I had been dragged out of my own family in front of strangers. Every red light seemed to mock me, trapping me in flashes of memory. The look on Mom's face when she smirked at my shame. The way the room had hushed, not in defense of me, but in awe of Harper's control. How could a sister I once adored turn into this? And why did it feel like everyone wanted to erase me along with her? By the time I pulled into the drive-through coffee shop, my chest ached from holding back sobs. Fluorescent signs buzzed overhead, flickering pink and green against the asphalt. I spotted Alex's pickup parked beneath a half-broken streetlight, its hood reflecting the neon glow. He was already waiting, leaning against his truck with a paper cup in hand. He looked older than when I last saw him, lines at the corners of his eyes, his hair shorter, darker, but the steadiness in his gaze hadn't changed. Alex Ramirez, my med school friend turned medical lawyer. He had been there when I fell apart during exams, when I skipped meals during rotations, when the weight of saving lives at 23 threatened to crush me. I slid out of my car, suddenly hyper-aware of my split lip. He noticed immediately, his jaw tightening. "Emily?" he said softly, but his voice carried the weight of anger he was holding back. I shook my head, my throat already tightening. "She did it in front of everyone, Alex. She slapped me, dragged me out like I was trash. And Mom just sat there smiling." He cursed under his breath, then pushed a steaming cup into my hands. The cardboard sleeve burned my palms, but the heat grounded me, anchored me in the present. "Tell me everything," he said. So I did. Standing there under the hum of the streetlight, I poured it all out. The years Harper had been cutting me out of holidays, the way she turned my accomplishments into jokes, how she had built a life so shiny and flawless that there was no room for me anymore. My voice cracked halfway through, but Alex never looked away. His eyes stayed steady, his body angled toward me like a shield. "She's been erasing me, Alex," I whispered, tears hot against my raw cheek. "From the family, from our history, like I don't matter, like I never existed." He didn't speak right away, just clenched his jaw and rubbed the back of his neck. That's not just cruelty. That sounds like strategy. The word jolted me. Strategy. I blinked, my mind racing back years. A vague memory surfaced, an email from Harper, short and casual. I had been in the middle of a brutal ER shift, exhausted, barely awake when I read it. She had asked for a scan of my nursing license, saying she needed it for family paperwork. I hadn't thought twice. I sent it, too tired to question her. The memory sent a chill crawling down my spine. "Alex," I said slowly, "years ago, she asked for my license. She said it was just for something small. I barely remember it. But what if—" He turned sharply toward me, eyes narrowing. "Dude, if she's touching your license, we gotta dig deeper." The air between us thickened. The steam from my coffee curled upward, vanishing into the night as my thoughts tumbled into place. What if Harper hadn't just erased me socially? What if she had been using me, using my credentials to build her empire? "She's been carving me out for years," I murmured, almost to myself. "This feels like a setup," Alex exhaled, shaking his head. "It might be worse than you think. If she's misusing your license for grants or medical claims, that's fraud. And with the way she's positioning herself in that brand, she might have tied you to everything without you knowing." I pressed the cup harder against my hands, needing something to hold on to. The hum of traffic blurred around us, but inside my head it was too quiet, too sharp. The pieces were starting to fit together, and the picture was terrifying. "What was she planning with my license?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Alex didn't answer right away. He just studied me, his lawyer mind already calculating. His silence was louder than words, heavy with possibility. The neon light flickered above us, casting us in flashes of green, then pink, then back to shadow. I realized my life had already been fractured into those same shards, before Harper's betrayal and after. And in that moment, with Alex watching me like he was preparing for a war neither of us wanted, I understood. The slap in the ballroom wasn't just humiliation, it was a warning. Harper wasn't finished with me. Jordan's house sat on a quiet suburban street, the kind of place where sprinklers ticked in rhythm and porch lights glowed like sentinels against the night. From the outside, it looked ordinary. Beige, stucco walls, a driveway littered with fallen leaves, the faint hum of a television leaking from a neighbor's window. But when Alex knocked and the door opened, that ordinary veneer peeled away. The smell hit me first, stale coffee, ink, and something metallic, like overheated electronics. Inside, the living room had been consumed by work. Papers spilled across every surface, some stacked neatly, others left in chaotic piles as if abandoned mid-thought. File boxes leaned against sagging bookshelves, their lids cracked open, revealing tax records and bank statements. A desk lamp cast a harsh cone of yellow light, while the laptop on the table glowed blue in contrast, its screen flickering faintly with open spreadsheets and scanned PDFs. Jordan emerged from behind the clutter like a man swallowed by his own obsession. His t-shirt was rumpled, his hair stuck up in strange angles, and thick glasses slid dangerously down his nose. He gave a curt nod. "You must be Emily," he muttered, voice scratchy from too much caffeine and too little sleep. He gestured at a chair barely visible under a stack of envelopes. "Sit. I've been digging." My pulse raced as I squeezed between boxes to reach the chair, brushing dust off the armrest before sitting. I felt like I'd stepped into an evidence locker, except this one was run by a man who lived inside it. Alex remained standing, arms crossed, eyes sharp, his presence steady but taut with anticipation. Jordan tapped at the keyboard, and suddenly my world cracked open. The laptop screen filled with a scanned loan application, the black ink still crisp against the digital white. My stomach dropped. At the bottom of the page was my name, Emily Carter, scrawled in perfect cursive across the dotted line. My signature. Or at least, a version of it so precise it could fool a banker, a judge, anyone. My throat closed. I leaned forward, my hands gripping the edge of the desk until my knuckles burned. "What is this?" I managed, my voice cracking. "A loan," Jordan said flatly, pushing another document toward me. $150,000. Harper filed it under the Vital Glow brand. She used your nursing license to legitimize the application, claimed you were her medical partner, the credibility behind the brand. That's how she got the money. The words sank like stones into my chest. I blinked hard, but the paper didn't change. My name was there, my license number printed neatly, my supposed signature at the bottom. My hands trembled as I reached for the document. The pages rattled like brittle leaves in autumn. That's not me," I whispered. My voice sounded far away, fragile. "I didn't sign this. I didn't even know she took out a loan." Jordan's eyes flicked up, steady and unforgiving. "That's because she forged it, and she didn't stop there." He clicked again. A new window opened, a pitch deck, glossy and sickeningly professional. Bright images of hospitals, lab coats, smiling nurses filled the screen. Then he froze on one slide, and my entire body went cold. It was me, not a stranger, not some stock photo. It was the photo of me in my Navy scrubs, taken during the pandemic by a coworker. I remembered that night vividly. I had just walked out of a 12-hour shift, sweat plastering my hair to my forehead, exhaustion carved into my face. But I'd smiled anyway, because we'd saved a life, and in that moment, the world had felt briefly worth the pain. That photo was personal, sacred almost. Now it was stolen, blown up on a slide under bold white letters, backed by frontline ER expertise. My hand flew to my mouth. "She's using me," I gasped, heat and nausea rising together. Jordan's jaw tightened. "Not just you. She's selling supplements, fake powders, cheap imports repackaged with flashy labels. No testing, no regulation. And she's pitching them as if you, a licensed nurse, personally guarantee their safety. She's built an empire on your blood and sweat." The room tilted. The humming laptop sounded louder, like a warning siren. My chest heaved, breaths shallow and uneven. Harper hadn't just humiliated me in public. She had stolen my identity, twisted it into a weapon, and was now selling lies in my name. "She didn't just steal my name," I whispered, fists clenching so hard my nails dug crescents into my palms. "She's cashing in on my life." Jordan's voice cut through the roar in my head. "This isn't just a loan, Emily. This is criminal fraud. If someone gets sick from these supplements, if an investor sues, your license, your reputation, your career, it's all on the line." Alex stepped forward, his hand firm on the back of my chair. His jaw was locked, every muscle rigid. "We'll build a case," he said. His voice was calm, but I could feel the current of anger beneath it. "Step by step. But Emily, you need to decide now. Once we move forward, there's no undoing it. This isn't just about Harper embarrassing you at a gala. This is war. War." The word echoed like a drumbeat in my skull. For a moment my vision blurred, not from tears, but from rage so sharp it almost felt cleansing. Maybe some part of me had been holding out hope, hoping Harper would apologize, admit she'd gone too far, remember the sister who once braided her hair and clapped for her dreams. But this wasn't a mistake. This was premeditated. The silence in Jordan's house pressed against me. Outside, the suburban street was still, the faint hum of a lawnmower in the distance, the glow of porch lights painting the night in gold. It felt obscene that the world could look so normal while mine was being ripped apart. I pushed the papers back toward Jordan with hands that no longer trembled. My voice, when it came, was low and steady. "Gather everything. Every loan, every forged document, every fake claim she's made. If Harper wants a war, she's going to get one." Jordan nodded, already rifling through another stack of files. "I'll keep digging," he said, his voice carrying both warning and respect. Alex caught my eye and gave me the smallest nod, the kind that said he was with me all the way. But it also carried a weight. "You've crossed a line. There's no going back." And I didn't want to go back. Still, even as determination settled into my bones, one question gnawed at me, cold and relentless. How far did Harper's lie stretch? How much of my life had she stolen while I wasn't looking? The glow of the laptop reflected in my clenched fists, sealing the vow inside me. This wasn't just about stopping her anymore. It was about reclaiming everything she had taken. The tea shop smelled faintly of roasted matcha and steamed milk, a sweet earthiness that almost grounded me, but not enough. I sat at a corner table, fingers wrapped around a cup that was too hot, sipping in shallow, nervous gulps. The sleek bamboo panels along the wall reflected a muted green light, and the low chatter of customers blurred into a kind of hum. Outside, Hollywood moved like it always did. Horns, laughter, a street performer drumming on overturned buckets. But inside, I couldn't focus on anything except the ticking clock on my phone. Mia was late. I scanned the entrance every 30 seconds, heart jumping each time the door opened. Part of me wondered if she'd even show. She had been Harper's assistant for nearly 3 years, her right hand, her shadow. If anyone knew Harper's secrets, it was her. But when Jordan gave me her contact, his voice low and cautious, I saw the worry in his eyes. "She's scared," he'd said. "And she has reason to be." The door chimed softly, and there she was. Mia looked smaller than I remembered from Harper's events, when she was always in tailored black and sleek ponytails. Tonight she wore an oversized hoodie, sleeves pulled past her fingertips, her hair loose around her face. She moved quickly, shoulders hunched, eyes darting toward the windows like someone afraid of being followed. When she sat down across from me, her hands trembled so much she nearly spilled her tea. I pushed a napkin toward her, trying to steady my own shaking. "Mia," I said carefully, like her name itself might spook her. She glanced up for a second before looking away. "I don't have long," she whispered. Her voice was so soft I had to lean in to hear. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I studied her face, searching for any trace of the woman who once managed Harper's calendar with ruthless efficiency. Now, she looked like someone carrying too much weight for too long. Finally, she slid something across the table, a small silver USB drive, scuffed at the edges. My stomach flipped just looking at it. "These are emails," she said, her voice breaking. "Campaign drafts, image files. Harper photoshopped you into them. She marketed you as her family health expert. She said having a nurse sister gave her credibility. She even signed contracts with your face on the materials." The air left my lungs. I stared at the USB like it was a weapon. My own face, twisted into Harper's empire, sold to strangers as a stamp of trust. Mia's hands fidgeted in her lap, twisting the napkin until it shredded. She wouldn't look at me. "And it wasn't just Harper," she whispered. "Your mom knew. She signed off on the campaigns. She said it was better for the family if no one asked questions." The words hit harder than Harper's slap. For a second, I couldn't breathe. My mother, our mother, had chosen Harper's lie over my truth. She hadn't just stayed silent. She had helped. I felt heat rise to my face, my pulse pounding in my ears. The tea in my cup had gone cold, untouched. I tried to form words, but they caught in my throat. "My mom signed off?" I finally croaked. Mia nodded quickly, her eyes darting around the cafe as if Harper herself might walk through the door. "She said protecting Harper meant protecting all of you. She said you wouldn't understand the bigger picture." Bigger picture. The phrase twisted like a knife. All those years I worked double shifts, saving strangers while barely saving myself, and Mom had been helping Harper steal my name, my image, my integrity. I pressed my palm flat against the table, trying to keep steady. How could she do this? The question wasn't for Mia, not really. It was for me, for the universe, for a God I wasn't sure was listening. Mia's lips quivered. "I quit because of that. I couldn't do it anymore. But Harper, she doesn't let people walk away clean." Her phone buzzed suddenly on the table, the vibration sharp and startling in the quiet cafe. She flinched so violently her tea sloshed over the rim. My heart lurched, my chest tightening, and then my own phone lit up. An unknown number. A text that made my blood run cold. "Nice meeting. Smile. You're on camera." The cup slipped from my hands, clattering against the table. My breath caught, every nerve screaming. My eyes darted to the ceiling corners, the windows, the bamboo shelves. Was there a camera here? Was someone watching us right now? Mia's eyes widened when she saw the message. Her hands shook even harder. "I told you," she whispered. "She has eyes everywhere." I swallowed hard, the matcha taste now bitter on my tongue. My chest rose and fell too fast, panic clawing at my ribs. Was Harper tracking me? Was Mom? Or was there someone else behind the screen, pulling strings I couldn't see? The tea shop felt suddenly smaller, the chatter of strangers muffled like I was underwater. My hand tightened around the USB, slick with sweat. My mind was racing. I thought Harper's betrayal had already reached its limit, but clearly, I had only seen the surface. Mom picked Harper's lies over me, and now someone was watching. I forced myself to stand, legs trembling but locked in place. Mia looked at me with a mix of fear and relief, like she had done her part by handing over the truth. "I'll use this," I told her, my voice steadier than I felt. "Whatever's on here, I'll make sure it sees the light." She gave the smallest nod, her eyes wet, and pulled her hoodie tighter around herself. Then she slipped out the door, vanishing into the chaos of Hollywood Boulevard. I stood there a moment longer, the text still burning on my screen. Betrayal from my sister, betrayal from my mother, and now a faceless threat watching me from the shadows. As I left the tea shop, the night air felt sharper, the neon signs harsher, the street sounds too loud. My grip tightened around the USB in my pocket, as if it were both a weapon and a lifeline. And one question consumed me. Who's watching me? The mailbox creaked when I opened it, the metal hinge screeching into the quiet of the night. I almost didn't notice the small velvet box at first. It was tucked against the corner, half hidden under a stack of junk mail. But when I pulled it out and the porch light caught the edge, my stomach dropped. I knew that box. I knew it before I even flipped the lid open. Inside, the family ring glinted beneath the weak yellow light, the ruby catching just enough glow to look like a drop of blood. My breath stalled in my throat. That ring had been a symbol of bond, passed from grandmother to mother, whispered to eventually be mine, and Harper's to share. When we were kids, Harper used to slip it on my finger during our wedding ceremonies with dolls and giggle that it meant we'd always be sisters first. Now, holding it here, in the dark, it felt poisoned. A note lay folded beneath the ring. My hands trembled as I pulled it free. The paper was thick, expensive, the ink pressed too firmly, as though written with intent to wound. "You'll never escape me. Stop digging, or I'll bury you with your own name." I froze, the words burning into me. For a moment the air around me thinned. The night pressed in closer, the faint buzz of a street lamp, the rustle of leaves down the LA block, the hum of a car passing too fast. Even the skyline seemed dimmer, as if Harper had stolen the light itself. My heart hammered. Who sent this? Harper herself? Mom, pulling strings in the background? Or someone else entirely, someone unseen who had been watching me since the tea shop? I shoved the box into my bag and locked the mailbox again, scanning the empty street. My skin prickled with the sensation of being watched. Every shadow seemed deeper, every sound sharper. By the time I reached Alex's apartment, my hands were still shaking. He opened the door before I could knock twice, his shirt wrinkled, his hair pushed back like he hadn't slept in hours. The smell of coffee hit me immediately. His apartment was cluttered, law books stacked in uneven towers, folders spilling across the dining table, sticky notes plastered like warnings on the fridge. But for the first time that night, I felt like I had walked into a fortress instead of a trap. I handed him the box without a word. He lifted the lid, his brows knitting instantly. "Emily." His voice was low but edged with anger. "She sent this?" I pushed the note toward him, my throat too tight to answer. He read it once, then again, his jaw clenching harder with each word. Finally he set it down and looked at me. "She's trying to scare you. We keep going." His certainty anchored me. My knees nearly buckled from the release of holding so much fear alone. I dropped into a chair at the table, the wood cool against my arms as I steadied myself. Alex cleared space among the papers and pulled his laptop closer. "We build the timeline, everything we know so far." So we did. Hours stretched into something timeless as we pieced it all together. The hum of traffic outside faded into background static, the occasional siren slicing through the night. The apartment light buzzed above us, flickering once, twice, like it, too, was under strain. We started with the emails. I remembered them vividly. Harper's messages sent during my COVID shifts. Short, casual requests, a scan of my license, a copy of a photo. At the time, I thought she was just being nosy, maybe trying to brag about having a nurse in the family. But on the screen, in Alex's organized folders, those tiny requests lined up into something chilling, a deliberate gathering of ammunition. Next came the transfers, shell companies that traced back to her, money moving in circles too fast and too clean to be innocent. The $150,000 loan Jordan had uncovered was just the beginning. These transfers painted the picture of someone laundering lies into luxury. And then the pitch deck. I hated looking at it, but Alex insisted. My photo plastered across frontline hero slides, slogans like "Trust starts with family" sprawled across the screen. Each image felt like another violation. I leaned back, pressing my hands against my face, fighting the sting in my eyes. That ring was supposed to mean safety, I whispered into my palms. Now it's her weapon. Alex didn't respond right away. He typed something into a document, the keyboard clacking steady and purposeful. Finally, he turned the screen toward me. "Fraud report forms," he said simply. My breath caught. Seeing it in writing made it real in a way I wasn't ready for. My name, my license, the details of Harper's crimes, all laid out like evidence waiting for judgment. Signing meant stepping off the cliff, sealing this battle into permanence. I stared at the cursor blinking on the screen, my chest heavy with dread. If I signed, Harper would come at me harder. She'd twist the story, gaslight the world, maybe even destroy what little family I had left. But if I didn't, she would keep stealing my life until there was nothing left to save. With a hand that still trembled but no longer hesitated, I signed. Silence filled the room after the click. I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was holding, my shoulders slumping with the weight of both fear and resolve. Alex closed the file gently, like sealing a coffin. "It's done." I nodded, though dread still crawled up my spine. I thought of the ring, of Mom's betrayal, of the text warning me I was being watched. Harper had threads in every corner of my life, and cutting them would take more than signatures and timelines. My mind whispered a question I couldn't shake, sharp and relentless. What else is she hiding? The answer would come, and I wasn't sure I was ready for it. But for the first time, I knew this fight was mine to finish. The cursor blinked on the screen, steady, almost taunting. My finger hovered over the trackpad, the glow from Alex's laptop washing my hands in pale blue light. Outside, the hum of the city drifted through the half-open window, traffic weaving, sirens wailing far off, the kind of restless background noise Los Angeles never lets you forget. My heart beat in sync with the cursor, each blink like a drum inside my chest. This was it, the moment I stopped being silent. I took a deep breath, the stale scent of coffee and paper filling my lungs, and clicked publish. The screen refreshed, and there it was, healthfraudexposed.com, alive, breathing in digital light. Page after page of evidence lined the site. Forged signatures, the $150,000 loan documents, the fraudulent contracts, the stolen photos of me in scrubs. I'd written it in plain language, raw and direct. No sugarcoating, no hiding. Harper had built Vital Glow on lies, and now the truth was laid bare for the world to see. For a second, silence seemed to stretch. Then my phone buzzed. Then again. Tick-tock. A thrill surged through me. My hands tingled, my lips parted in a breath I didn't realize I was holding. For so long, Harper had controlled the narrative, silencing me in rooms where no one would listen. But this was my voice amplified by strangers. I wasn't just exposing her, I was reclaiming my life. Still, under that rush, fear lurked. Because I knew Harper. She wouldn't take this quietly. And I was right. By evening, her story appeared. A glossy, perfectly curated video on her Instagram. Harper, teary-eyed under soft lighting, mascara running just enough to look human. Her voice cracked at the right moments as she whispered, "Some people can't handle your shine." She spun the whole thing into a sob story, her jealous sister, her toxic family, her resilience against hate. Fans flooded her comments with hearts, calling me bitter, broken, unstable. The bile rose in my throat. Watching her weaponize even this betrayal felt like being slapped all over again. Alex muted the video with a sharp flick. "Classic deflection," he muttered, leaning back in his chair, arms crossed. "She's good at this, but we've got receipts she can't spin away." I tried to believe him, but the pit in my stomach only deepened, because if Harper was crying for the cameras, she was already plotting off screen. And then the twist came. Jordan emailed later that night, his subject line blunt, "Follow the money." The attachment made my hands sweat as I opened it. Bank records, transfers from the loan Harper forged in my name, only they didn't go straight into Vital Glow. She funneled tens of thousands into a nonprofit, an organization that barely existed on paper. No staff, no office, no mission statement. Just a shell with my mother's signature listed on the board. My breath caught. Mom wasn't just looking away. She wasn't just protecting the family image. She was tangled in it. I stared at the screen, my throat dry. The betrayal cut deeper than any bruise Harper had left on me. Mom had always preached integrity, hammered into me that truth mattered, that our family had honor. Now, here she was, laundering my stolen name through Harper's fake charity. "She's deeper in this than we thought," I whispered, my voice thin. Alex rubbed his temples, muttering under his breath before meeting my eyes. "Emily, this isn't just Harper anymore. Your mom's complicit. This could get ugly fast." I felt sick. My hands trembled, but not from fear alone, from rage. How could Mom look me in the eye all these years, knowing she was selling me out in ink and paper? Before I could even process it, a knock rattled the apartment door. My stomach lurched. It was late, too late for visitors. Alex frowned, rising slowly, his shoulders tense. When he opened the door, no one was there. Just an envelope, thin and pale, resting on the mat like a ghost. He brought it in carefully, and I unfolded it with trembling hands. Only one sentence, typed, no signature. "Someone else knows. Watch for the witness." The words blurred as my pulse pounded. My skin prickled with unease. A witness? Who? Someone inside Harper's circle? Someone from the nonprofit? Or worse, someone closer than I wanted to believe? Alex's eyes narrowed. "This changes everything. If there's a witness, we're not alone, but we have no idea if they're friend or foe." I clutched the letter, my thoughts spinning. The apartment seemed smaller, the city outside louder. I thought about the ring in the mailbox, the camera text, Mom's betrayal. Every secret I uncovered only opened another door. My chest rose and fell too fast, but I forced myself to steady. Harper had spent years turning me into her shadow, twisting my life until I barely recognized it. But tonight, watching the site explode, watching her scramble to reclaim control, I felt something shift. "I'm not stopping," I whispered, more to myself than to Alex. "Not now, not ever." The laptop screen still glowed, the site alive with comments and shares, strangers piecing together Harper's lies in threads and stitches. And in the reflection of that light, I saw my own face, tired, bruised, terrified, but no longer silent. Still, one question gnawed at me as the letter trembled in my hand. Who knows Harper's secrets? And why were they watching me? The glow of my laptop screen was the only light in my cramped apartment, throwing pale shadows across stacks of papers and half-drunk mugs of coffee. Outside my window, the LA skyline twinkled like 1,000 tiny lies waiting to be uncovered, each one blinking in the darkness. The hum of the city felt distant tonight, muffled horns, a low thrum of late-night traffic, because my focus was fixed on the Zoom window opening in front of me. Zoe's face appeared, grainy at first before sharpening into clarity. She was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with sharp eyes that caught everything and hair pulled into a messy bun like she'd been working for hours without caring how she looked. She gave a curt nod, her voice steady but urgent. "Emily, I've been briefed by Alex," she said, "but I need to see it for myself." My hands hovered over the trackpad, heart pounding as I dragged the files into the upload box. The progress bar crawled, my breath sinking with every percent ticked upward. Each document I shared felt like peeling away another layer of skin. Harper's forged signatures, the fraudulent loan records, the fake contracts, the photoshopped campaigns where my tired ER face was repurposed as a shiny endorsement. When Zoe opened the first PDF, her eyes widened. She leaned closer to the camera, scanning line after line, her lips parting as if the words themselves struck her. "Oh my God," she whispered, then louder. "This isn't just messy family drama. This is fraud, identity theft, exploitation. This is a story." Her words echoed inside me, steadying me. For months, Harper had made me feel like the crazy one, the jealous little sister. But Zoe didn't see me as bitter or broken. She saw me as a witness, a victim, and maybe even the key to something bigger. I exhaled shakily, my fingers curling around the warm ceramic of the mug beside me. I just I don't want people to think this is about envy. She's destroying lives. Mine was just the first. Zoe's gaze sharpened, her tone clipped but fierce. Emily, this isn't a sister feud. It's a scam empire. The conviction in her voice made my spine straighten. For the first time, it felt like I wasn't screaming into a void. We spoke for hours, piecing together a narrative. She asked sharp questions, and I gave her everything I had, every text, every email, every late-night moment of paranoia when I felt Harper's shadow pressing against me. Zoe's expression hardened with each detail, her anger mirroring my own. When the call finally ended, I sat in the silence of my apartment, staring at the blackened screen. My reflection looked back at me, eyes tired, but lit with something fierce. Purpose. The next morning, my phone buzzed relentlessly. Zoe's article had gone live on BuzzFeed. The sister she exploited, how Vital Glow's founder built an empire on stolen credentials. The headline alone stopped me cold. Then I opened it. She had woven the evidence into a story that was undeniable. Harper's fake persona, the forged signatures, the nonprofit funneling, all laid bare, not just in numbers but in human terms. Zoe described me not as the jealous sister, but as the ER nurse whose identity had been hijacked to sell lies. She turned Harper's empire into what it really was, a house of cards built on exploitation. And people believed it. Shares climbed into the thousands. Comments flooded in. Nurses outraged, health professionals horrified, ordinary readers disgusted. TikTok stitched the headline into videos of people holding up fake supplements, warning their followers. Twitter threads dissected every line. The outrage wasn't just mine anymore. It was collective. By afternoon, the ripple turned tidal. A major health conference announced they were dropping Harper from their keynote lineup. The statement trended on LinkedIn. "We take integrity seriously. Vital Glow is no longer welcome." I felt tears prick my eyes, but they weren't from sadness. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt vindicated. Harper's shiny armor was cracking and the world could see it. But the most powerful moment came later, when my inbox started filling. Emails from nurses. The subject lines blurred together. "She stole my formula. I thought I was the only one. Vital Glow ruined me." One by one, I opened them, my chest tightening with every story. Nurses from across the country describing how Harper had taken their research, their recipes, their credibility, and passed it off as her own. Some had lost jobs, some had been humiliated publicly, some had been silenced into shame. I sat at my desk, scrolling through the flood, my hands pressed against my mouth. Each story felt like another thread tying me to strangers I'd never met, yet who shared the same wound. It wasn't just me, it was us. My mind whispered, steady and clear, "This fight's bigger than me now. It's theirs, too." I leaned back, the LA skyline twinkling through the window behind me, the city alive and indifferent. My phone buzzed again, another email from another nurse Harper had scammed, and with each new notification, my resolve deepened. Harper had tried to erase me. She had stolen my name, my face, my worth. But now the voices she silenced were rising together, and together we were louder than her lies. Still, one question gnawed at me as I stared at the endless stream of testimonies. How many others did she hurt? The cursor blinked as I uploaded the final file. My laptop whirred, its fans straining against the weight of truth. 12 testimonies, 12 nurses. Each one had entrusted me with their words, their pain, their betrayal. I watched the progress bar inch forward, a parade of raw confessions turning into evidence that could no longer be ignored. One by one, their faces had appeared in my inbox, tired eyes and hollow voices describing how Harper had stolen from them, formulas, research notes, herbal blends painstakingly crafted through years of work. Some said she'd approached them sweetly, promising partnership. Others said she'd outright demanded, leveraging her platform like a weapon. Every story ended the same way. She took their work, claimed it as her own, and tossed them aside. My apartment was silent except for the soft hum of the laptop, but their voices echoed in my head. She told me I was lucky to even speak to her. I thought I was finally going to make a difference. She said her sister would guarantee everything was safe. That last one made my stomach clench. My name, my supposed credibility, used as a shield for her scams. As the files finished uploading, I stared at the glowing screen, my reflection faint in the glass. My hands rested on the keyboard, knuckles pale. "These nurses trusted her like I did," I whispered. "She's a predator." And then, as if on cue, Harper struck back. Her face filled my phone screen, perfect lighting, artfully messy hair, eyes red from strategically timed tears. She sniffled, her voice cracking just enough to sound fragile. "My sister's struggling, guys. The ER really broke her. Send her love." The words sliced through me. She wasn't just denying, she was flipping the script, painting me as unstable, unhinged, traumatized, into madness. And her followers believed it. Comments rolled beneath the video like an avalanche. "Stay strong, Harper. Family can be toxic. We love you, Queen." I slammed the phone down on the desk, my pulse hammering. How could she cry while those nurses bled? How could she weaponize compassion while grinding people into dust? My own family might have smirked and looked away, but strangers around the world were now feeding her narrative like sheep. I buried my face in my hands, the weight of betrayal pressing heavy on my shoulders. But even in that moment of despair, a spark of rage burned hotter than the tears. Let her cry. Let her manipulate, because I had proof, and proof always outlasts crocodile tears. Later that week, I drove back to our old family home. The house looked the same on the outside, paint a little chipped, lawn half wild. But stepping through the door was like falling into a haunted memory. The smell of dust and cedar hit me, the kind of scent that clings to places long abandoned. Every corner whispered echoes of childhood. Harper's laughter, Mom's sharp voice, the silence that followed arguments. I climbed the creaking stairs to the attic, my flashlight flickering weakly against the cobwebs. The air was thick, stale, every breath coated in dust. I moved boxes aside, relics of our past, school projects, old photos, forgotten Christmas decorations, until something caught the beam. At first I thought it was a toy, a small black box tucked between beams no bigger than a fist, but when I picked it up, the lens glinted in the light. A camera. My pulse spiked so violently I had to steady myself against the wood. My fingers trembled as I turned it over, the cold metal biting into my palm. A tiny red light flickered once before dying. Someone had been watching, recording. In the attic of my own family home. I froze, the silence roaring in my ears. My flashlight shook, the beam stuttering across the rafters as if the shadows themselves were closing in. I imagined Harper sitting somewhere, sipping tea, watching me stumble around my own childhood attic. Or worse, Mom. Had she allowed this? Had she helped? I staggered back, clutching the camera like it might bite me. My chest tightened, breath ragged. Every nerve screamed with paranoia. Was I still being watched? Were there more cameras? I rushed down the stairs, the sound of my own footsteps too loud, like I was giving myself away. Outside, the night air hit me hard, cool and sharp against my burning face. I leaned against the car, the camera still clutched tight, and tried to slow my racing heart. Back in my apartment, I set the camera on the table and just stared at it. That tiny black box seemed to pulse with malice. The nurses' testimonies were one kind of betrayal, lies, theft, exploitation. But this was invasion, a violation that crawled under my skin. I turned on my phone again, scrolling past Harper's video, her teary face still plastered across feeds. Fans were still sending her love, defending her. And here I was, staring at proof that someone had been in my home, tracking me. The contrast twisted my insides. She cried on camera, playing the victim. Meanwhile, she, or someone, was turning me into prey. The apartment felt too quiet, too exposed. I shut the curtains, locked the door, checked the corners twice. My chest rose and fell too fast, but beneath the fear was a sharper edge, anger, resolve. I whispered into the silence, steadying myself against the weight of it all. Is Harper still watching me? I didn't know, but I was going to find out. The bar in Santa Monica was dimly lit, its polished wood tables catching the reflection of low amber lights. Outside, I could hear the ocean faintly, the steady rhythm of waves mixing with the muffled laughter of couples strolling the boardwalk. Inside, the air smelled of salt and whiskey, a strange mix of warmth and sting. Glasses clinked all around me, voices layered in casual chatter, but I couldn't relax. Not tonight. Lucas was already seated when I arrived, leaning over a drink that looked untouched. His suit jacket was too sharp for the laid-back setting, but his eyes betrayed a heaviness that had nothing to do with style. When I slid into the chair across from him, he didn't waste time on pleasantries. He reached into a leather briefcase at his side, pulled out a slim folder, and placed it between us. "Emily," he said quietly, his voice almost swallowed by the bar's hum, "you need to see this." My pulse quickened as I opened the folder. The first page was a contract, glossy with official headers. My name leapt off the paper, bold against the text. I froze, scanning further. It wasn't just my name. It was my license, my credentials, attached to supposed hospital contracts. Harper had pitched Vital Glow as being partnered with Frontline ER networks, padding her numbers with fake agreements, using me as the guarantee. My breath came shallow. I flipped to the next page, then another, each one a mirror of the lie. My signature was there too, looping confidently across dotted lines I had never seen. It was my handwriting, only it wasn't. "God," I whispered, the word breaking on my lips. Lucas leaned forward, his fingers pressed to the rim of his glass. "She sold me on it. Said her sister, a respected nurse, had her back. Do you know what I thought when I saw your name on those contracts?" I looked up, my chest tight. "What?" "That she was untouchable." His voice was bitter, laced with regret. "That Vital Glow was bulletproof because it was backed by you. I bought in because of those documents." Rage surged hot through my veins, but underneath it, a hollowness gnawed at me. Harper had taken more than my image. She had taken my integrity and auctioned it off to the highest bidder. I curled my hands into fists under the table, nails cutting half-moons into my palms. But Lucas wasn't finished. He flipped the stack over and revealed one last sheet. His eyes didn't meet mine when he slid it across. "Your dad didn't just know," Lucas said, voice low and grim. "He sold your name to me for a cut of the profits." The words knocked the air out of me. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline, for him to laugh and say it was some kind of mistake, but his expression didn't falter. Slowly, I lowered my gaze to the paper. My father's name, his signature, and beside it a payment breakdown that made my stomach twist. He hadn't just signed off on Harper's fraud, he had profited from it. My own father had traded my name, my career, my life for money. The bar blurred around me. The clink of glasses grew distant, drowned out by the roar in my ears. I saw flashes of him from my childhood, arms crossed at soccer games, distracted at birthdays, always a little absent, but still my dad. I had held on to scraps of belief that maybe his distance was just weakness, not malice. But here it was in black and white. He hadn't been absent. He had been selling me out. I pushed the papers back with shaking hands, my throat burning. "No," I whispered. "He wouldn't." But even as I said it, the evidence stared back at me. Lucas sighed, rubbing his forehead. "I wish I didn't have to be the one to tell you, but you need to know how deep this runs." The betrayal carved into me, sharp and merciless. Mom had chosen Harper's lies. Dad had chosen Harper's profits. My family, the people who were supposed to protect me, had sold me piece by piece until I was nothing more than a commodity. I swallowed hard, forcing air into my lungs, but every breath tasted like ash. Lucas looked at me, his regret heavy. "Emily, I don't think this is everything. If he sold your name once, who's to say he didn't do it again? There might be more deals, more contracts out there." The thought made my stomach lurch. What else had Dad signed away? My credibility, my reputation, maybe even legal rights I didn't know existed? The idea of him shaking hands, pocketing money while Harper smiled, made bile rise in my throat. I clenched the edge of the table, the polished wood slick under my damp palms. My own father traded my name for cash, I thought, disgust settling heavy in my chest. I'm done with them, all of them. I stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. Lucas looked up, startled, but I shook my head. "Keep the documents," I said, my voice hoarse. "I don't need to see them again." Outside, the ocean breeze hit my face, cool and salty. The night air should have calmed me, but instead it stung like open wounds. I walked along the boardwalk, the sound of waves crashing against the shore mocking the chaos inside me. I thought of Harper's crocodile tears, Mom's complicity, Dad's greed. Every piece of family I had once clung to was rotting, and I had no illusions left. They hadn't just abandoned me, they had sold me. The question gnawed at me as I stared at the dark horizon. What else did Dad sell out? The Los Angeles courthouse smelled faintly of polish and old paper, the kind of place where the air itself seemed weighted by history. As I walked into the courtroom, the sound of murmurs filled the space. Low voices, rustling clothes, the scrape of benches as people settled in. Light streamed through tall windows, spilling across the polished wooden floors in sharp angles. My palms were damp as I smoothed them against my skirt, but my voice inside repeated like a mantra, "Steady, steady." The gavel struck once, sharp and commanding. Silence fell instantly. My heart slammed against my ribs, but I rose when my name was called. Each step to the witness stand echoed like a drumbeat. I felt every eye on me, the room pressing in. When I glanced at the bench, the judge's gaze locked with mine, sharp, assessing, but not unkind. I didn't know then that she had once been a nurse, but something in her eyes told me she understood more than she let on. I told my story. My voice shook at first, then found strength. I described the gala, the chandelier glittering overhead, the sting of Harper's hand across my face, the humiliation of being dragged out in front of strangers. I spoke of the forged loan, my license stolen, my image twisted into a false endorsement. Every word felt like reopening a wound, but here, in this room, the wounds became evidence. Then Mia took the stand. Her hands trembled as she swore the oath. But when she began to speak, her voice carried. She described Harper's manipulations, the endless pressure to Photoshop images, to build lies pixel by pixel. Her voice cracked when she admitted, "Her mom signed off on those pictures." And a ripple went through the courtroom. The betrayal wasn't just Harper's anymore. It was systemic, woven into the very fabric of my family. The nurses followed, one after another, 12 in all. Their stories echoed mine like variations of the same terrible song, formula stolen, research hijacked, reputations ruined. Some spoke with anger, others with tears, but together their words built a wall of truth. I felt myself shaking as I listened, not with fear, but with solidarity. For so long I had believed I was alone, screaming into silence. Now I knew I was part of something larger. Of course, the defense tried to dismantle us. Harper's lawyer leaned into the same story she had crafted online, that I was unstable, broken from endless ER shifts, jealous of my sister's success. He painted me as fragile, unhinged, unreliable. My throat tightened, fury rising, but Alex countered with calm precision. He laid out the documents like bricks, the forged contracts, the falsified hospital partnerships, the shell companies. Each one undeniable. And then Jordan wheeled in the monitor. The hum of the machine filled the room as he adjusted his glasses. "This," he said, tapping a key, "is what clinches it." The recording began. Harper's voice filled the courtroom, sharp and unmistakable. "Emily's license? It's just a marketing tool, nothing more." The words cut through me like glass, but not just me. Gasps erupted across the benches. The lie I had carried in my bones was now spoken aloud for all to hear. To Harper, I had never been a sister, only a commodity, a prop. I gripped the edge of the stand, my nails biting into wood, but then something unexpected washed over me. Relief, because the truth wasn't locked inside me anymore. It was out there, undeniable, undeniable. But Jordan wasn't finished. He tapped again, and the screen shifted to an image of circuitry. His voice stayed calm, clinical, but each word carried weight. The hidden camera found in the Carter family attic, traced back to Harper, purchased with her card, installed with her login credentials. She was watching every move. My breath hitched. The paranoia, the unease, the late-night dread, it had been real. Harper hadn't just stolen my name, she had invaded my life. I forced myself to look at her. Harper sat rigid at the defense table, but her mask cracked. Her jaw clenched, her nails dug into her palm, and for the first time panic flickered across her flawless facade. The judge leaned forward, eyes piercing, voice steady as iron. The room seemed to hold its breath. "Emily Carter, your integrity outshines her lies, young lady. This court awards you $250,000 for identity theft and defamation." The words hit like a wave, stunning, liberating, final. My chest swelled, my eyes blurred, but it wasn't sadness. It was release. Justice had a sound, and it was the gavel striking wood one last time. The courtroom didn't erupt in applause. It wasn't that kind of place, but the air buzzed with quiet triumph. I saw nurses exchanging looks of relief, Mia wiping her eyes, Jordan nodding with satisfaction. Alex placed a hand firmly on my shoulder, steadying me, grounding me. I sank back into my seat, trembling, the weight of months lifting from me all at once. Harper had thought she could break me, reduce me to nothing but silence and shame, but she was wrong. Still, as I dared another glance at her, I saw fury simmering beneath her polished surface, a storm waiting to burst. Her lips pressed thin, her gaze fixed straight ahead, but her eyes burned with something wild. Victory warmed me, but a shadow lingered at the edge of my mind. The judgment was in my favor. The truth had been spoken, but Harper's story wasn't finished. She thought she'd break me. She was so wrong. And yet, one question pulsed inside me as the courtroom emptied and I stepped into the bright LA sun. Would Harper try to escape? The television's glow painted my apartment in flashes of white and blue, the voice of the anchor sharp and urgent. Breaking news tonight, Vital Glow founder Harper Carter was arrested at Los Angeles International Airport, attempting to transfer $60,000 into offshore accounts. The footage cut to chaos inside the terminal. Passengers pausing mid-stride, reporters jostling for position, cameras shaking as they tried to keep up with the swarm of uniformed officers escorting Harper. Her wrists were bound in handcuffs, the shine of metal stark against the sequined sleeves of her designer jacket. For once, the camera lights were not flattering. Her mascara ran in dark streaks, her usually perfect hair frizzed and tangled from the commotion. She tried to push through the officers, her voice rising in panic. "This is a mistake. I'm being set up." But the crowd wasn't buying it. Phones were raised high, recording her downfall, the same way she had once orchestrated every curated post. The chyron blared in red at the bottom of the screen. Wellness icon collapses. Harper Carter in custody. I tightened the blanket around my shoulders, my knees pulled up against my chest. My heartbeat drummed in my ears as I watched her stumble, her heels catching on the slick airport tile. The same woman who had once dragged me across a ballroom floor by my hair was now being shoved through sliding glass doors by federal authorities. For years she had forced me into silence, but here the world was watching her with eyes wide open. Reporters shouted over one another, their voices breaking through the terminal noise. "Harper, where's the money? What about the forged contracts? What do you say to the nurses you exploited?" She kept her head down, lips pressed tight, her fury hidden beneath the weight of cameras she could no longer control. For the first time, she wasn't the one spinning the narrative. The segment replayed in quick cuts. The courtroom where she lost, Zoe's article flashing across screens, TikToks with captions calling her a scammer in disguise. The anchor's voice narrated over the clips, calm but cutting. Vital Glow collapsed overnight. Website orders canceled. Social media accounts deleted. Once a multi-million-dollar empire, now dust. I reached for the remote and muted the sound. The silence was startling, but it pressed against me like a weight. The TV screen still flickered with her image. Harper being shoved into the back of a van, hair falling across her face, the empire she had built on my back crumbling in real time, and still, no word from Mom. None from Dad either. Their silence since the trial had been deafening. No apologies, no explanations, just absence, as if ignoring it could erase their part. It didn't. Their quiet carved as deep as Harper's screams ever had. I pressed the heels of my hands against my eyes, but the ache behind them threatened to spill over. Not for Harper, not anymore. But for what family was supposed to be, for the hole their betrayal had left behind. Harper might be gone, but the scars she carved into me still throbbed. The laptop on my desk chimed with a new notification. For a moment I didn't move. My stomach clenched, half expecting another cruel message from one of Harper's remaining fans, but curiosity tugged me forward. I clicked. The subject line stopped me cold. "Thank you." The email came from a young nurse, a name I didn't recognize. The message was simple, raw, unpolished. "I watched your story. I read the testimonies. For months I thought I was weak for staying silent about my sister stealing from me. But you You showed me it's possible to fight back. You gave me courage to stand up to my sister. Thank you for reminding me that family doesn't excuse abuse." The words blurred as tears welled in my eyes, hot and sudden. Not the tears of exhaustion or rage or humiliation, the ones that had followed me for months. These were different. They were warm, releasing something inside me I hadn't realized I'd been holding. I pressed a trembling hand over my mouth, a shaky laugh breaking through the sob. Somewhere out there, another woman was fighting back because of me. Another sister was refusing to be silenced. It didn't undo the damage Harper had done, but it mattered. It mattered more than I'd realized until that moment. I whispered into the quiet, repeating the line like a vow. "You gave me courage to stand up." I closed the laptop gently, almost reverently, and leaned back into the couch. The apartment was filled with the faint hum of the city drifting through the window, sirens in the distance, a car horn echoing down the street, laughter from a group passing by. Life went on. Harper was in custody. Vital glow was ashes. But my parents' silence lingered, heavy as ever. A wound still raw, unacknowledged, festering in the shadows of my victory. "She's gone," I thought, my eyes fixed on the glow of the muted TV screen. But the scars linger, and still, I'm stronger than them all. My chest rose and fell more evenly, a rhythm steadier than it had been in months. For the first time, the quiet didn't feel like a threat. It felt like space, a space where healing might be possible. And yet, even with Harper gone, the question hovered like a shadow just out of reach. Can I heal from this family? I didn't have the answer. Not yet. But for the first time, I believed it was possible. The ER pulsed with its usual rhythm, machines beeping, voices calling out vitals, the squeak of sneakers against polished linoleum. The scent of antiseptic was sharp in the air, layered with faint coffee and the metallic tang of blood that clung to the edges of night shifts. I stood at the nurse's station, charting vitals with one hand while adjusting the stethoscope draped around my neck with the other. My body moved on autopilot, years of training guiding me, but my thoughts drifted like shadows across the room. For so long, I had been defined by Harper's theft. She had carved pieces of my life into her empire, plastered my face on her lies, dragged my name into contracts I'd never signed. But here in this place, surrounded by the steady hum of real work and real sacrifice, I felt anchored. She could steal my name and wear it like cheap jewelry, but she could never steal the hands that held a patient through the worst night of their life, or the grit that kept me on my feet when exhaustion begged me to fall. That was mine. That would always be mine. When the shift finally slowed, a rare lull that felt almost holy, I slipped into the break room. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sterile white glow. The vending machine hummed in the corner, its glass streaked with fingerprints. I carried my laptop to the table, opened it, and stared at the blank document. The cursor blinked at me, patient, unrelenting, like it was daring me to speak. My story was already out there, ripped apart by news anchors, dissected by strangers online, twisted and retold in TikToks I never asked for. But this wasn't about them. Writing here for the nursing blog wasn't about scandal. It wasn't about Harper. This was me, reclaiming the words in my own voice, finally, without her shadow looming. I let my fingers hover, then typed. I'm a nurse, not a prop for her lies. My sister tried to use my license as a marketing tool, my face as a sales pitch, my reputation as a shield. But none of that defined me. What defines me are the nights in the ER, the lives I've held in my hands, the voices I've steadied in chaos. Strength doesn't come from theft. It comes from truth. The words spilled faster as I went. I wrote about the betrayal, but also about survival. I wrote about the courtroom, about the nurses who sat beside me and told their truths, about the young woman who emailed me after the verdict saying she had finally found the courage to stand up to her own toxic sister. I admitted to the fear, the humiliation, the sleepless nights when I thought I might never escape, and then I wrote about the relief, the justice, the solidarity that had followed like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. Halfway through, I stopped, staring at the faint reflection of my face in the screen. For the first time in years, I didn't look like a victim of Harper's games. I looked like myself again, whole, present. but a thought curled at the edges of my peace like smoke. Harper might resurface. Arizona, Texas, some small city where no one knew her name. Reinvention was her specialty, and though the idea chilled me, I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. She might crawl back under another brand, but she would never wear my strength again. That armor was mine, forged in fire and betrayal, and it was untouchable. I finished the post with steady hands, signing my name not as her sister, not as her victim, but as Emily Carter, nurse, survivor, truth teller. I clicked publish and sat back. The hum of the vending machine filled the silence. It wasn't the roar of a gavel or the sting of flashbulbs. It was quieter, deeper, a release. Through the break room window, the LA skyline blinked with tiny lights scattered against the dark. Each one belonged to someone living their own story, someone nursing wounds I'd never see, someone standing up after being knocked down. My fight was one thread in a much larger tapestry, but it mattered. And now I want to speak to you, the one listening, the one who stayed through every twist, every betrayal, every scar. If someone close to you has betrayed you, if you've been silenced, erased, or turned into someone else's weapon, I want you to know, you're not alone. Betrayal may scar you, but it does not define you. True strength isn't found in stealing someone else's light. It's found in owning your truth. So share your story. Drop it in the comments below. Let this be more than my fight. Let it be ours. If you felt even a piece of yourself in my words, hit subscribe for more real stories. And share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who needs to remember that truth is stronger than any lie. I closed the laptop gently, the glow fading into the sterile hum of the break room. Outside, a nurse called my name. Another patient had just been brought in. The night wasn't over, and neither was my work. As I pushed through the door back into the bustling ER, my chest rose with steady breath. Monitors beeped, voices called out, life pressed forward, and I carried one final thought like a shield, steady as my own heartbeat. Harper might still be out there, but she would never ever wear my strength again.